Hi guys, welcome back to the Unspoken podcast. My name is Rian, and I am so glad to have you guys here with me today. So let's get into today's episode. Okay, so a little life update before I get into today's topic. Um, Life has been hectic as hell, but honestly, I've been handling it. Like me and my sister doing RIA and just like keeping up with a lot of the packaging and stuff like that. Keeping up with orders, social media, everything, and the fact that it's on our shoulders is crazy. But happy to do it. I'm having such a good time. Um, we're moving in a month, which is absolutely insane to me because when it was like, oh, I'm moving in 2025, it was like, okay, like I have time, but now it's like 2025 is in 4 weeks. I gotta like get things going. um, but yeah, no, I'm excited to move. I'm like excited to have my own space. And it'll be like a whole new chapter, which I'm absolutely like excited for. And lately, I've been getting back into reading like actual books. Like, I've been reading a lot of poetry and stuff like that, but I haven't like actually sat down and read a book. And I found some time this weekend to read, so I was like, why not? You know what I mean? Um, and honestly, I don't like to read like really trendy books. I don't really see like the appeal of it, but there was like something about this book that like I just need to read it. It's called Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nguyen. And honestly, it took me by surprise because a lot of like people were talking about how it's like focused on anxiety and just like not overthinking and stuff like that. And I've always been an overthinker. So I was like, why not just read it? Like I have like this weird urge to go read this book. And it honestly surprised me. I really loved it. And it's a short read. I feel like everybody should read this. It's about 120 pages, 15 chapters, so it's a light read. But it really took me by surprise. And I'm literally gonna give this to my sister to read because I know she'll love it. I feel like one of the main reasons I really loved it is the way that it was written, just like the style of it. It was kind of giving a letter. Like, it's like, wow, this book was written for me type of vibe. You know what I mean? But this book was amazing. Like, I would recommend this to literally everybody to read. Okay, anywho, to get into today's episode, I've been getting a lot of DMs lately from people that listen to the podcast, which is honestly amazing because I love to like talk to literally anyone. So just like reaching out and asking me questions or just seeing what's up, it was really nice. You know what I mean? I love to have conversations with strangers. Um, One comment really caught my attention and had me thinking a little bit, and it was about where I get my confidence. And honestly, I feel like it really stuck with me because I was always a shy person. And I would always be like afraid of trying new things in a way because I was always focused on perfection. But confidence is honestly not something that you're born with, it's something that you learn, and I had to learn to be confident in everything that I do, including this podcast, just because, you know, for a shy, quiet girl, you wouldn't expect her to start a podcast. You know what I mean? So it's just like getting comfortable in a way. And I'm going to be honest, I still get scared sometimes. I still get nervous trying new things, whether it's like public speaking or going into the ocean because it's one of my like worst fears. Um, and I would say I still get awkward. You know, like I'm still an awkward person. And I guess like over time I got social anxiety, or it like developed into social anxiety, especially after like the lockdown and everything. So like getting back out there is still overwhelming. Like sometimes like it's like deeply rooted in my brain where I get like overwhelmed, and if I'm overwhelmed I get like very anxious, and all I want to do is like get out of a situation. And to be honest, this genuinely doesn't mean that I'm less confident, but it just means that I'm human. So confidence itself kind of stems from positive experiences. So when you have a positive experience, your brain actually triggers the dopamine pathway. So it's like, oh, you succeeded on something, and your brain kind of reinforces the fact that you can do it, and that mindset of, oh, I can do this. Like, I have all this experience. It's going to build your confidence. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel like when we talk about confidence, we kind of like think of perfection in a way. Like everything has to be perfect, everything has to be to the T. And I feel like I was also one of those people. Like, ask anybody that knows me, they'll probably say the same thing. I've always been one to try to gain perfection, and then that's just like not the reality of things, because you just can't be perfect. The whole point of being human is to be imperfect, you know what I mean? Okay, so I'm just gonna use this as an example, but when I was in school and I was studying genetics and cell biology, and for a girl that has zero experience in the field, I was honestly going in blind, and I was always so nervous of taking that step or messing up that I would just like constantly hold myself back and not really learn as much as I did. And I had some really great people around me at the time. I was working with this grad student where he kind of like noticed that I was holding back, and I didn't want to like mess up, because I was like, well, this is his project. Like in my head, I was like, this is his project. I don't want to mess up his project. So let me just like keep my thoughts to myself, keep my opinions to myself, and I'll just do what I'm told. Like that was the mindset that I had. And I feel like he kind of picked up on that. And after a while, he just started like, whenever I had a question, he would always ask me like what I'm thinking, or he wouldn't give me the answer because he would let me like figure it out on my own. And honestly, I am grateful. I am truly grateful to him for kind of like forcing me to do things on my own, even if it's technically his project. He would kind of like push the idea that it's more of my project, and whatever happens happens, because when it comes to like working in science, 95% of the times the thing that you want to happen will never happen. Like you will fail over and over and over again, and at some point you just get used to it. And I like accepted it at some point. Like accepting it didn't necessarily mean that I stopped trying, or I tried to get the results that I wanted, or like trying to find another way. It would just like push me to kind of, I guess, like find a new way or a new idea, or try to solve the problem from a different perspective. And I feel like working in the lab, working in science, I've learned that things genuinely don't happen the way that you anticipate it to. However, what did you learn from it? Like, where can you go from here? And it's such a great lesson to learn, honestly. And I'm glad that I learned it then, because if I didn't learn it then, I would still be that really anxious girl that didn't want to put herself out there. And it's funny because I mentioned this a lot in my like previous episodes, but when you're constantly holding yourself back, telling yourself that you can't do something, or that you don't want to overstep, or put yourself out there, you're going to constantly reinforce that cycle of you can't do it, therefore you can just stay here and hang out in your comfort zone. And it's funny because a lot of the time, fear itself is just your amygdala overreacting, trying to keep you safe. However, the whole point of life is to be living in that uncertainty, because you truly never know until you give it a whirl. The good thing is that our brain changes and adapts with practice. The more you do something, the more your brain becomes accustomed to it, and the better you get at it. And it's like, oh, this is okay, this is good, you're good, you know what I mean? So it kind of reinforces the fact that you are okay in that situation. So confidence itself is learned through practice. The more you do something, the better you get at it, you know what I mean? And that includes confidence. Okay, so let me give you guys a really, I guess, kind of embarrassing example. So this is like first year undergrad, my first ever presentation in biology, or like foundations of biology, whatever you want to call it. So this was a group project. Originally, like, I had a really, really big group, which I honestly feel more confident or more comfortable, I guess, presenting with a group. But then since we were a large group, our professors kind of like broke us down into partners, and it was like me and some other girl in the group, right? So during that time, I was like preparing for this presentation. It was my first presentation in a very long time. And I guess I was dealing with a lot of anxiety at the time. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't do this. So I emailed my professor and I said, I got COVID. I lied and I said I had COVID. That girl had to present on her own. And honestly, I feel bad till this day. But at the time, it was like the best option for me because I was like actually panicking about this presentation. And I feel like public speaking itself is extremely hard and it gets very overwhelming. And I feel like the more you practice, the better you get. But sometimes, like, when you're out of practice for so long, you just get nervous again. Like, it's just like the first presentation jitters. Um, and like, just like this podcast, like in the beginning, I was low-key nervous and I was like kind of stuttering, or I was re-recording things multiple times because I was like mixing my words and just like being my little nervous self. Anywho, I did apologize to the girl that I kind of dished on presentation day, and I feel like after that, I really did show up for all my other presentations, and I did pretty well. Um, just because, like, when I one practice, right, kind of like getting my note cards ready and everything, and I like to like go into the room that I'll be doing the public speaking in, just to like kind of get more comfortable with the room and just like, I don't know, just like getting the feel for everything. And eventually I just got used to like talking to people about what I was doing at the time. Um, and honestly, when it comes to social anxiety and feeling overwhelmed, it really just stems from a fear of judgment or rejection. And then that's just like your brain kind of being the salesperson, like, hey, like, you shouldn't do this because you're gonna get rejected or they're gonna judge you. And it basically just like tries to hold you back from doing that thing that you wanted to do. And the way that your brain kind of does that is it releases cortisol, which makes you feel on edge and it makes you feel anxious. And it's understandable because obviously nobody wants to be put in an awkward situation or in an uncomfortable situation. So your brain practically is trying to, like, I guess, protect your feelings or protect you in general and just kind of keep you in that safety zone. But if you constantly stay in the safety zone, you won't really grow much because you're holding yourself back in every aspect of your life. So there's honestly so many ways where we can get comfortable in any situation. And a lot of it is like mostly positive self-talk. The more like you talk to yourself in a positive way and you constantly tell yourself, yeah, you can do this, like, you're good, it kind of reframes how you see the challenge, and it also reduces the stress that you're gonna feel during that activity. So when you are getting ready to talk on stage or do a presentation of any sort, if you tell yourself, yeah, you got this, like, you're good, like, you're gonna kill this, you prepared, and just like telling yourself like good things, like you're gonna be great at this, you're gonna kill your presentation, then the amount of like cortisol that's going to be produced is going to be minimized, and your brain is going to be like, oh, okay, like I guess we're good. You know what I mean? The more you tell yourself you're good, the more you're going to be good. But negative self-talk, on the other hand, activates your stress hormones and puts you in that anxious state where you're in fight or flight. So if you're basically saying, I can't do this, oh my god, like I'm so scared, I wasn't meant to do any public speaking, blah blah blah, you will literally convince your brain that you are in danger, therefore you need to get out of there. So it's going to constantly produce all your stress hormones, and it's going to be like, get out of there, like it's not safe for you to be there. And the more you reinforce it, the more you're unlikely to actually do public speaking or put yourself out there, because it's going to take a long time to reprogram your brain in order to do that thing that you're so scared of doing in the first place. Another thing that tends to hold us back is the feeling of embarrassment. And I feel like we all go through it. Like, we have embarrassing moments in life, and it's inevitable. Like, we're all going to experience it. And a lot of the time, I just tend to like remind myself, we are all human, we're all gonna make mistakes. Some of them are gonna be funny moments, some of them are not. And I just had to like learn, whenever I feel embarrassed, to also like laugh at myself, because it's like, okay, like, that was a funny moment. I won't go and like beat myself up for an embarrassing moment because I couldn't prevent it, you know what I mean? So it's like, just laugh it off, walk it off, and you are good. Like, your life isn't going to be defined by embarrassing moments unless you let it. So just keep it pushing. We are all human at the end of the day, and nobody is perfect. So I honestly have like 3 tools that I use pretty frequently to kind of reduce my anxiety and push myself to do new things. And it's grounding exercises, which is primarily box breathing, because it helps calm my nervous system, it helps me calm down, and just like being able to find that moment of peace. Another thing is visualization. Like, whenever I'm nervous of doing something, I like to visualize myself doing the task. And sometimes, like, if I have the tools, I would practice a lot. Like, I do a lot of practice work. I feel like in that case, like, a good example is when I used to do a lot of lab work. Whenever I only get like one chance to do something, I would practice like doing it multiple times with things that I can like replenish or whatever, like pipetting. Like, I'll try with water, or whenever I do a dissection, I like to visualize myself doing the dissections. Or like when I worked in the clinic, I would like mentally prepare and like see myself going through the motions of preparing injections or helping out with other things, you know what I mean? Another thing is baby steps. Like, honestly, baby steps, because when you're trying to do something, it's not the best option to go head first into it. I like to like start with small exposures and just like build up from there. Like, I guess like a good example of what not to do was when I was younger. Like, I was like maybe in middle school. I went overseas. I am not the best swimmer. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the best swimmer. But I guess like one day my older brother was like, let's go scuba diving. And I didn't want to be the only person that didn't go scuba diving. So I was like, okay, I will go. Went scuba diving, unable to swim. Like, I'm okay, like I can survive, but I'm not the best swimmer. You know what I mean? So it was just like, I started hyperventilating and my stress levels went up. But honestly, I'm glad I did it, because when are you going to get the chance to go scuba diving in Dubai? Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, honestly, baby steps is the best way to go. Ask questions. And when you start small, or you start on a smaller project or whatever, and you kind of build from that, you can kind of see like the gradual growth that you have. So I guess like a good example is like when you're getting ready for a presentation. I know I used it like 6 other times in this episode, but bear with me. Just like first writing down everything that you want to say and how you want to articulate yourself, and then you want to put it into words, right? So you're constantly reading it out loud, or like literally pretending like you are presenting to a crowd, and then like practicing in the room that you're going to be presenting in, and do your presentation out loud multiple times. And then you finally get to that point where you're going to be presenting in front of a couple of people, and that's when you like feel more ready and you feel more accomplished. When I started like working on my public speaking, I honestly started by like reading books out loud, or like reading anything out loud, and just like hearing my voice out loud in order to kind of, build the courage to do it in front of people or record it. You know what I mean? Anywho, confidence itself is personal and it's fluid. And what I mean by fluid is it always depends on your mood, emotion, circumstances. It all affects how confident you are. Like there's some days where you feel more confident in comparison to other days. Like there's days where I'm like very much chill. I want to like be out there talking with people, and there's other days where I just want to avoid any type of communication. And like during those days when I have to like go out or do something, I tend to feel more overwhelmed and a little bit more anxious. So I would say like confidence kind of fluctuates up and down, you know what I mean? And confidence itself is not about never feeling fear. It's more about showing up anyways. Because a lot of the times when we're trying something new, obviously we are terrified because we don't know how it's going to turn out, or we've never done this before. But showing up anyways kind of like pushes you to challenge yourself more. And also to be okay with who you are rather than pretending to be perfect. Because at the end of the day, nobody's perfect, as Hannah Montana once said. An icon, if I don't say so myself. Anywho, before I end the episode today, I just wanted to leave you guys with a quote. And it's from the book Don't Believe Everything You Think that I mentioned earlier in the episode by Joseph Noah. His last name is a little hard to say. I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Okay, so the quote is, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of love in the midst of fear." And I feel like it just fits so perfectly in today's episode. And I literally found this quote this morning, so wonderful. Everything falls into place. Anyway, you guys can leave a comment down below about what helps you guys become more confident, and just share it with everybody. And yeah, thank you guys once again for joining me on today's episode. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a comment and a review. It would absolutely mean so much. And if you guys ever want to connect, I am on Instagram at Deanne'sPOV. If you guys do want like kind of like a written version of my notes, I do have a Medium account where I just kind of like write down my thoughts, and a lot of them are free. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out. That is also at Deanne'sPOV. Yeah, so thank you guys again, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.